Back to the John Oakley Show on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
It is a great day for talk radio, and we're going to get back to this whole notwithstanding clause thing here as we head into the home stretch shortly. But I did want to just veer away slightly and talk about some other matters that are coming up in October, and that has to do, as I say, with the legalization of pot. A lot of people anticipating that eagerly. Many people also extolling the virtues of medicinal cannabis. Heard that on the weekend from somebody whose place I was at because, they've got an elderly mother who's had anxiety and the onset of dementia and so on and so forth, and swear by those components. So against that backdrop, when we've got an opioid crisis in our midst, I think everybody sort of understands the severity of that. There is a school of thought that believes that opioids could be perhaps supplanted by medical marijuana instead to treat pain. Now, Geoff Benic is the CEO of Aleafia Health. This is a leading medical cannabis company, but he's also been a professional hockey player, so I'm wondering how this would square with athletes in positions where injuries are endemic. Of course, it just goes with the territory, and medical marijuana, as it were. Let's get Geoff Benic in here on the Oakley Show. Geoff, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, John, and thanks. It's a great day for talk radio.
Thank you for understanding. Listen, you're coming back to us from the background as a professional athlete, having played hockey in the NHL. You came up through the Windsor Spitfires, and so a lot of years you've seen, players getting injured. I mean, that's just, as I said, part of the territory and a lot of, injuries that are chronic pain, and guys are trying to play through that. And that's really where a lot of the opioid crisis has found root, because it's not always just, street people, down and outers. A lot of folks just succumb to, I guess, the seductive quality of easing your pain. Do you believe that medical marijuana can replace opioids? Would professional athletes, the sporting world, embrace it?
Without a doubt, John, I got to tell you, I mean, growing up in hockey and playing hockey at the level that I did, first thing that you run into is all the doctors that, just want to prescribe to get you on the ice and ready to play and ready to go for the next game. And, and I got to tell you, I mean, looking back in my career and some of the folks some of the guys that I played with and whatnot, I got to tell you, it was probably the worst thing that ever happened to them is, it was a quick fix and wasn't a long-term solution. And I got to tell you, I mean, now in my role now as CEO of Aleafia, as a cannabis company, I just look at the net benefit of what we can do to get rid of these opioids and these addictions. And, we can talk about a lot of them all the time, but at the end of the day, I wish this was available back when I was playing, because I've got a lot of friends, and we'll talk about that later on, that unfortunately got hooked and are still hooked on the opiates to this date.
Well, all right, but how would medical and training staffs then accept this? I mean, do you see a willingness on their part to go this route?
Yeah, and I think it boils down to like what we talk about. It's talking about education and awareness, and making sure that everyone knows. I mean, look, we're going through prohibition now, and there's a lot of taboos around that. But I got to tell you, I mean, cannabis is an organic weed, and it's not going to hurt your internals. It's going to help you and deal with a lot of these issues that a lot of these players, whether it's concussions, PTSD, or post-traumatic and or any kind of pain management. It's a different way of dealing with issues that obviously are just not as addictive as some of the opiates out there in the marketplace today. And I can tell you, I've got so many friends that are stuck and hung up on opiates today from the hockey days that is probably the biggest reason why I got into the space today.
Again, Geoff Benic's with us, a former pro hockey player. He's now the CEO of Aleafia. This is a leading medical cannabis company. And the suggestion that maybe medical cannabis could replace opioids right across the border in the sporting world. You mentioned concussions. I mean, really, medical cannabis could, how would you deal with it? I mean, so much is unknown about concussions and concussion protocols and things like that. How would medical cannabis help?
Look, I think Eric Lindros is doing a good job with that with the University of Western Ontario, and I mean the jury's still out on that, and there's a lot of studies going on that, so I really don't want to touch into that subject matter yet. But I can tell you, in terms of pain management, and whether it's back pain, knee pain, like I can tell you, John, like imagine traveling at give or take 60 kilometers an hour at 240 pounds and hitting somebody hard into the boards. Back in the day, the boards weren't as flexible as they are today, but, I mean, that being said, they're still the same. And it's just an accident waiting to happen. And, as an athlete, you wanted to make it to the bigs. You want to play and stay in the bigs. So you're subject to trying to stay healthy, and you do whatever you can to stay healthy. And the only alternative that's ever offered to you is these opiates. And I mean, to deal with pain. A lot of the guys in the show and or in the minors play with a lot of pain, and opiates is just the wrong way of treating these the pain of some of the injuries that these players play with. So cannabis being an alternative, and you're probably going to hear a lot more and more of it for the whole reason of, number one, is that it's not addictive, and number two, it's organic and it doesn't damage your internals.
Jeff, I mean, if you're suggesting, opioids are used fairly extensively by players who are in pain and injured, do you think the league is keeping a lid on this? The Players Association, I mean, how rampant is it?
So I got to tell you, I mean, traditional medicine now, whether you're in the NHL or the minor leagues or whatnot, follows traditional medicine, which is, traditionally is let's deal with pain scientifically and let's go with chemicals and deal with it with, kind of chemical solutions, which would be the opiates, oxys, and all that other good stuff, unfortunately. So until the league opens up its mind and understands that, hey, listen, a guy or girl who is on, medical cannabis as a replacement for some kind of pain management is not out there just to try to get high, which is the same stigma that you have in recreational use, is that we're not out here just to, try to get high and use it to, deal with different issues, but instead it's for pain management in such a way that you're not getting a high. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to play at the top of your game, and if not, perform even better, because you're not going to feel that pain and issues that you would have if you weren't treating it.
Well, what's the NHL's policy on drug testing now? I mean, would medical cannabis have to circumvent that some way, somehow? Or would you be in favor of mandatory drug testing, even random drug testing? What would the policy be then?
We're in an interesting time in the history of the NHL as it pertains to Canada, because under the Cannabis Act here in Canada, cannabis becomes legal, and it's no longer a drug that is going to be viewed and frowned upon by the NHL. So I think that the difference, though, is that in the U.S. is still viewed a different way. So I think the NHL has got to make a decision as to which way they go and which way they look at it. But I can tell you, at least here in Canada, I think you're probably going to start seeing a lot of players starting to deal with it differently. And look and view it differently, and I truly hope that the teams here that represent Canada in the NHL will look at it the same way, especially as it pertains to pain and anxiety and or sleep, to that point as well.
Well, and then there's finally the idea of travel advisories, because, the Prime Minister was quoted today from Winnipeg as saying, if somebody asked him, would you admit that you were smoking cannabis, when it's, going to be legal in a matter of a month and change, going into the states. Some states are okay with it, but federally, it's still a no-go zone. How should the league, if the league's then allowing players to use medical cannabis for a start, or we've even got the legal stuff October 17th, what would the travel advisory be? What do you think the teams ought to tell the players?
John, I think that everyone's got to get the stigma out of their mind that cannabis is a recreational thing that you smoke. No, I mean, because of standardized dosages and whatnot, and some of the formulations that a lot of great licensed producers have developed, including us here in Canada, and some of our partners, that being CanTrust. I got to tell you, I mean, it comes in the form of a gel tab, it comes in the form of a capsule, and it's like standardized medicine. So, I mean, why should you have to talk about, something like that? I mean, you're taking medicine, to help you with inflammation, help you with, sleep issues, help you with whatever the pain that you're trying to manage. It's no different than like taking Tylenol, and I think that everyone's got to get over this stigma of cannabis being this recreational thing that just is, you smoke it, and it's purely recreational, and I think that cannabinoids and THCs in terms of pain management, the net benefit of it is just so immense that I think that everyone's got to get over it, John.
All right. Well, we may arrive at that point. I'm just saying in the immediate, there could be cases where, players might have some splaining to do at the border when they cross over from this country back in the States. Jeff, got to leave you on that note. I appreciate you giving us insight into how the opioid crisis might be replaced by crisis